What's going on, YouTube? My name is GinJ-TCG or Chris, and today I'm back for another episode of the Battle VIPs podcast, joined by my co-hosts Josh and Avery. What's good, guys? How are you?
What up? How we doing?
What's going on, everybody? Are you ready for some statistical analysis of this absolutely unchanged format aside from like
Statistical
3 cards?
is crazy, bro. The only statistics I've added is a 30 HP Pokemon changing approximately like 6 decks around maybe a spot or two. I don't think Prismatic evolutions. I think it's actually the most uneventful set we've gotten. Like, Shrouded Fable destroyed
Shrouded Fable was bad.
No, Shrouded Fable destroyed tier list.
Was it?
It was a mini set, dude. Yeah, Dusknoir came out.
Shrouded Fable literally ruined the game.
Was that
the set before?
Or was that the set before?
I thought that was all the set before.
Shrouded Fable brought us Fez and Petron.
Fez.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was like, it brought something else that changed the game. Yeah, no. A mini set. I think all of us here at least are in agreement that a mini set was much more impactful than this full set is, and I think that's because 70% of this set is reprint.
Yeah, wasn't this considered like a more of just a collector set, wasn't it? Like, not really.
I think that's what it's unofficially known as, but that's just because, again, we've got, like, as players, we've gotten an insane amount of reprints, but all of those reprints also got new arts. So it's collector set, but, you know, we got 3 cards, maybe, that have changed the format a bit and became their own decks. We'll get into it, and we'll jump into it. But yeah, I mean, for now, don't expect much to have changed, but we've got some spice in here, and we're doing more of a complete tier list, and I feel like, other channels, we got a lot more rogue decks and chaos thrown in here that we'll definitely be excited to share and talk about. So, enough talking about that. Let's get into the first deck. Ancient Box up first. Where we got this one?
I got this one at the tippy top of B. I think that Ancient Box is a solid pick right now, but because of this new format, I think that there are a few decks that are up in that A tier, and a couple more fall below, because you rely on things like your Ultra Balls, you rely on your Earthen Vessels, and because of Badoo, you're going to be very, very tight to get rid of cards, aside from playing things like Explorer's Guidance, I think it is, and Professor Sawdust to accelerate your energy. It's very tough if you're under that sort of lock to really perform with a type of deck like this. Don't get me wrong, you still have things that can get rid of your Ancient cards, but it's going to be a lot slower, and by that point, Badoo is just going to keep going and going and going. Your Vengeance Fletching is going to one-shot all the Badoos, but because you're under item lock consistently for most of the game, because they can just thornton things out, they have a lot of options, you're going to be under a lot of pressure from the jump. So I think that it's sitting at the top of the bulk of meta, just barely grazing that amazing pick, is just a little slight change from last time.
No, I got total agreeance. I got one counterpoint. Most decks, with the exception of maybe 2 decks that rely entirely on Badoo, many decks that play Badoo play just 1 copy, and I think actually a deck like Ancient Box is only reliant on item cards to swing harder, but since Sada allows them to swing for, as you said, base KO on Badoo, no questions asked, I think it's actually fine. I think that because they'll still have their item cards in hand, it's not like they're gone, that just means that, let's say you're up against Charizard, or, I don't know, what deck plays like 1 Badoo? Sinistcha. Really random deck, I don't know why that one's on the top of my mind. Let's say you're up against Sinistcha EX, and they play 1 Badoo, they get you under item lock for 1 turn, then you KO it. After that, you will still have all the items in your hand to discard the next turn and swing for really just as much damage as you would have. So I also had it on the top of B, but I think that it's because it actually does well into a Badoo format that it's at the top.
I put it in B for a little bit of a different reason. I think I love Ancient Box. I'm a big Ancient Box player right now.
Yeah.
I'm just looking. I'm always like looking at different lists and stuff. I think it's in a really weird spot where people don't really know the ideal list yet. People don't even know what proper A-spec to play with this deck yet. People love playing this deck with Secret Box. That's what I play with right now. People are starting to put Blender in just for a little bit quicker start. And then another thing is that this deck loves to use its A-specs when it can. It kind of relies on it to get itself going early if it can. Badoo comes in and knocks it down a little bit. So I think for now it's down low, but once it finds out what A-spec it really wants to use full time, once it kind of figures out a way past this Badoo stuff where it just becomes less reliant on items, because again, playing it a lot, I'm using a lot of Poke Gears to find Sadas. I'm not just top decking Sadas or starting with Sadas. I never start with Sadas, and I play this deck all the time. If I get a Sadas in my starting hand, I start with like Koraidon and can't retreat anyways. Honestly,
So
that's just what happens.
But base Koraidon's like sturdy, which is KO on Badoo.
But which is another thing. People don't even know. People don't even like Koraidon in the deck. Some people play Walking Wake just for 2 extra ancient cards. So people are playing a million different ancient Pokemon just because they don't know if Koraidon's good or not. So the deck's in just a really weird spot overall, where I don't think it's an amazing pick unless you somehow are the person who's sitting there with the fucking best 60 in their hand. Cut it out.
That's real.
Wait,
cut it
on.
out, bro. I'm
Hold
not
on.
cutting anything out. You pulled the full Rich.
You don't play Treasure Tracker and Ancient Box, dude? What's wrong with you?
Bro, Treasure Tracker go kind of crazy. I'm not gonna lie. Oh my god, that's the deck I forgot to put in this. Alright, that's my
Rotom V-Star?
Rotom V-Star did not make the cut. Rotom V-Star will be in the next episode. I knew I was forgetting one. I knew it. Oh, I'm so upset with myself. It's Treasure Tracker. Oh, man. All right, well, if I had to smack it down, honestly, that is the top of C. That is the rogue deck of all rogue decks. I actually think it's an insane spot right now. I just made a video on a build with Cram, and it actually was so much more consistent, so much more powerful, and did shockingly well against Badoo-type decks, too, because you're not super reliant on many item cards. Sure, a Nest Ball or an Ultra Ball can help get rid of tools. Most of your tools are TMs anyways, so you can just attach them to all your Pokemon, swing for base KO on Badoo, and then all of them will go to discard naturally the next turn for you next turn. But yeah, I think that's an insane rogue deck right now. I will definitely have it for the next tier list.
Yeah, I would say C. I don't really see why. I don't see it being anywhere else.
Phenomenal
awful.
rogue deck. Phenomenal.
It's not awful enough to put in B. Like, it's great to bring sometimes, but like
it's just not tanky enough for me to think that it can hang against the big guys. But definitely a solid rogue deck. Jumping into our next deck that I did include, Arch Aladdin Dialga V-Star.
I got this thing in A. Just A. This thing is it's
phenomenal.
Japan recently had like a 5,000 player tournament, and this thing just smoked it. Like it's very. I don't know what it is with me. I just don't like playing metal decks for some reason. Metal decks just always fall away from me. But I might have to run this and give this a try, just because Dialga is such an amazing Pokemon.
It's
period.
Fun. And it was.
And it was fun.
Dude, Dialga's been in the format longer than Regidrago, and was worse for longer. Like, this is the break Dialga needed to see play, just like Regidrago.
Yeah.
To have both V-Stars be two of my favorite V-Stars since they were printed, and then be as useless as they were until pretty much just before they both rotation is actually so poetic. Like, I've talked about it with Regidrago. I was annoyed when it got good because it was amazing and it was too amazing, and I'm annoyed with Arch Aladdin because sometimes I feel like it's too amazing, but I can't hate it because it gave these cards the story they need. And they're not Pokemon that are necessarily overhyped or overplayed. Like, it's not another Charizard deck that I'm saying this about. Like, Dialga and Regidrago are cool Pokemon too. So, I've also got it in A. Now that I'm off the hype train of like just Dialga being a cool underrated V-Star, it's tanky. You skip turns, taking 220. Sure, you can't Oko things like Raging Bolt, but you could boss KO a Ogerpon and then naturally just gust up another Raging Bolt and take 4 prize cards in a turn. I mean, the deck has so much to it right now.
Such a fun
and I think
game.
It's insane. Yeah, to be able to play 3 copies of Turo because Arch Aladdin sets you up that perfectly is just not fair. Like, that's nuts. So yeah, no, definitely a high A pick. And the Champions League, if I'm not mistaken, that wasn't a Badoo format, wasn't it? Because they were ahead of us.
Was it?
I think it was.
I'm pretty certain. Because Japan's tournaments are ahead of us. And they've had Badoo for a while. They actually just got Journey together, I believe. Or am I lying about that too?
Oh.
I know they're always like a set ahead of us. Like, I think they're like a couple months ahead. Because if you go to like Pokakabuk, they already have tournaments with lists with like Lily's Clefairy and stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really?
Speaking of which, it is so sad that Lily is gonna be like the least played.
Because there's
like,
the least for it. There's 2 Pokemon? We got Clefairy,
and then you have like Hop, who's getting every support in the game. Your Hop's Pokemon do 30 more damage. Your Hop's Pokemon will now do 20 more damage. It's like,
Battle
dude, come
VIP
on.
pass for Hop's Pokemon.
Yes.
That's insane. Bringing us back, though, to the decks we got in the format now for Prismatic Evolutions. We got Arch Aladdin in A tier. Where do we feel about Snorlax Stall?
I mean, I got it like towards B tier. I mean, like I feel like Stall is at a spot right now where it's like people are expecting it a lot less. It's a lot less respected, and it can certainly do well, but in a format like this, I mean, Stall is just sort of like it's there, it exists. Just know that, and you'll be all right.
I'm with you.
Stall, the best way I could put it is Stall is the most boring roller coaster you're ever gonna go on because it goes like this, but the fun parts are for people who play Stall are down here. This is what Stall's play looks like. Stall is really good and it's really popular. Now it sucks because it's up here. Then it falls and now it's supposed to be. Now it's getting bad. Now it's getting bad. Oh, no one's playing it and no one's accounting for it. Now it's phenomenal.
It's actually
you know what I mean?
Good way to put it. Yeah.
Stall is a boring roller coaster.
I definitely think it's on more of the downward slant, like you guys are saying. I definitely got it, honestly, probably in lower B right now. If not, I need to bump it down to C. There's a lot of Petra EX being played too. Like, I think Roaring Moon and decks like that are in a better spot. I think Lugia is making a huge comeback, which has always been a nightmare matchup for Stall. And I think decks like that gaining more popularity kind of bumps Stall lower and lower. And then just like you guys said, there's only a couple months left in the format, though. So I'm curious to see if we kind of get that one last climb with Stall, you know, and if it's able to start getting into a better spot before it does rotate out as well. But definitely a lower B deck, in my opinion, too.
Yeah.
Our next deck we got, and these are going to be two of the new ones, so we'll take them one at a time. There's definitely going to be a lot to unpack. Badoo, Dusknoir.
I got this thing in A tier.
I mean, high, mid-A.
It's just, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, in your video, you had a game that was like, what, like 30 seconds, two minutes? Like,
no, literally, I questioned playing a fourth. Like, I was a minute and 15 seconds off playing a fourth game. Generally, I try to get minimum 25 minutes of gameplay out. Except for maybe the Donk deck, because I literally was finishing, I finished 4 games in under like a minute and a half each. This rivaled that, and it was a full match every time. You just item lock until you could go Dusknoir, Blood Moon or Saluna for game. Like, you just board wipe. You board wipe everything. Put yourself to one prize to use Blood Moon or Saluna for free and clean up whatever poor soul happens to be in the active spot. And I think, comparing it now, I'm just going to jump into it, to Badoo Frostlass, which I got as an upper B deck. Badoo Dusknoir, I do think is better in an A tier because it does so much better into things like Dragapult. It does better into a Dialga here and there. Just because when you're relying on Frostlass and Monkey Dory for damage counters, you get shut down hard if your opponent doesn't have any abilities in play. I think Badoo Dusknoir is just as powerful, but with the other decks we're seeing be popular in the meta, I think this swings better into either of those. Can this change next week? Absolutely. But for San Antonio, I expect to see a lot of Dragapult and things like that. So if I were to play a Badoo deck, since I believe Badoo will be legal for San Antonio, I think that's the first regional where Prismatic Invasions is legal. Yeah. I think Badoo Dusknoir is actually a legit play and like a really, really solid play. It's consistent, it's strong, you don't expect it, you slow your opponent down, and you take control of the game very early, which is really nice.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't know what to say. Couldn't have said it better myself.
I appreciate it. And then Badoo Frostlass, again, it's not to knock it being in B. It's an upper B because I think this type of deck is very strong right now. I think these Control-y-esque decks, we saw it in Pidgeot EX, Pidgeot Control in the last podcast. I think they're in a great spot. I just think there's a couple really popular matchups that are going to be A-tier picks for us. And that's kind of why I'm throwing Badoo Frostlass in B. I think it swings a little worse into those Dragapult type decks. So, yeah. Badoo. And if you're worried about Badoo, I mean, we're here, we're talking about it. Let's just get it out of the way. It's the elephant in the room. I know just before this call, we spent 15 minutes talking about Badoo. I think it's techable. I think a Pokemon League headquarters, I think a Rocky Helmet, these are all techs that you can easily stick into maybe like 70% of decks relatively. Like unharmed, like I don't know, I think it's worth considering for Badoo. I know, like, for Charizard players, you might want to switch back to a TM Evo build, because now you are playing more middle evolutions. Your Arvins, sure, your items might be useless, but now you have TM Evo, so you can still get out your Pidgeotos, your Charmeleons, and then naturally evolve into Charizard and Pidgeot for next turn and keep continuing your gameplay that way. Like there's ways decks can deal with Badoo. I think it's annoying at first because we have to see it for what it is, see how this becomes involved in decks, and then after a week or two, there's going to be changes. I think now we're starting to see how we need to make those changes to adjust to a Badoo format.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's only got 30 HP. One prize got 30 HP, that's fine. It's annoying, sure. It slows you down, sure. But it's only slowing you down. I don't think it's stopping decks from winning. So, yeah. Badoo Rat.
Yeah, I mean, if item lock was better, I feel like Bennett kind of would have just been.
I think
better.
item lock is phenomenal if it could do more power. I don't think Badoo
That's what I mean.
is the deck that can handle that. Badoo has just too little HP. I like Bennett. I think Bennett is a much better item lock. And I think if we think item lock can take over the format, or you as a player think so, look into a Bennett Salvatore build more. I did make a video on Bennett on Halloween. That was insane. We used Binding Mochi and all of that, and it was actually nuts. How good that was.
At Baltimore, my 4th game was against a Bennett player, and like it was decent, but I don't know how he fumbled against a Champao, where like legitimately, if you look at my list, like it's like 40 something item cards,
70.
but I still somehow pulled through, and it's like Bennett is decent. I just don't think it's tanky enough.
Which is usually the trade-off with item lock cards. They're usually weak damage, low HP, because it's such a powerful effect. Bayonet does have the options, though, to get more damage. I think at Baltimore... oh, no, we did have access to Janines and Mochi and everything. I think that became a build later on, though. People started realizing that using Mochi to boost the damage with Radiant Sneasler and Brute Bonnet to also do poison damage on top of item lock, it actually ramps up damage pretty fast. So I think that's a much stronger way to play item lock if you're looking for an item lock deck. I think Badoo Dusknoir is more of a board wipe deck, and Badoo, although it's like the main attacker, it's really Dusknoir that is. Badoo is the thing that allows you to wipe the board without worrying about, huge KOs against you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Badoo and item lock. Next up, we got Ceruledge and Palkia, or just Ceruledge. I mean, I feel like there's some pretty standard ways to play it right now.
I feel like Ceruledge by itself is way better than this build.
I might have to make another. I'll have to make another image with just Ceruledge, because I think you're right too.
I got this at like maybe upper C. Like it would take a strong, convincing argument to get me to get up higher.
I wouldn't even bother. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. It's just a lot. I mean, regular Ceruledge is fine enough, especially into a format like this. Like you're doing decent with that. The need for Palkia just isn't there right now.
No, that's fair. I mean, you get access to Radiant Greninja though with Palkia, and I think that's where the draw is to Ceruledge. You get an insane one prize attacker that can snipe 2 Pokemon, where in the early game against stage 2 decks that could be massive. So I actually like the Palkia build more, but I think that's just because it's not as linear and you could kind of do more with the deck. But I think into a format like this, being linear is not totally a problem. Like if your top deck to take down is Archaladin, you really just need Ceruledge. You really don't need that Radiant Greninja. So yeah, I think I am going to make a just Ceruledge deck without Palkia, and then that might be in like a lower B. Probably very low B for me, but still B. Next up, Josh, sorry, did you have something?
Well, no, I was just like saying.
Next up, we got Charizard and Dusknoir.
I mean, I got this in B, like upper B, of course.
High B.
But I think that like it went from an A tier to a B tier simply because you're gonna have to definitely make some cuts now. I think that, like you were mentioning before, like you have to find a way to get your Pidgeotos and your Charmeleons and stuff like that in there and cut out a couple things. Like, you're going to be playing a lot slower with Zard build, and what made Zard so good was the ability to just rare candy into Zard, rare candy into Pidgeot, and just have access to everything you need off rip, and also be able to, like, rare candy Dusknoir or Dusclops and then Dusknoir. You relied a lot on those item cards.
Yeah.
But you're not entirely at a loss here with this format, which is also one of the best things that Charizard now can hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And another thing, like similar to Ancient Box, I think Charizard is temporarily in B. I think like Charizard players, it's gonna find its way back to A. It's gonna find its way up there.
Build.
Like
I
it
think
always
the TM
does.
Evo build that we gave up on a year ago is the perfect build to deal with Badoo. I mean, you played your Pidgeotos, you played your Charmeleons, you naturally had more middle evolutions, you expected not to use Rare Candy as much in that build. Now, that's what decks are forcing you to do. Like, if you go back to something like that, just like you were saying, like that Charizard players are gonna find their way. They always do.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good deck. It's
those
card
cretins
Charizard
always find the way out.
The card Charizard EX itself is too good to not be good.
Yeah.
It'll find its way back.
Yes, I agree. And you already play Arven. Okay, if the item part of your deck fails, you still got the tool for TM Evo. Like, I don't think you have to cut that much. I think maybe where you see the cut is more of a replacement. Okay, you replaced Defiance Span. We're dealing with the slower format. Maybe you can't cheese out 30 extra damage. Maybe that's your TM Evo spot. You know, like, I think that's fine for the deck. I don't think it really needs more than that. But yeah, I've got it in upper B2.
Yeah, and I can't think off the top of my head of any sports supporters specifically, but you could just play a supporter that searches for a Pokemon, or like if you can't play items, you're not worried about it. You could tech in one of those supporters that searches for a Pokemon.
What is it? Erazu, Clavel, searching for Pokemon with 120 HP less, or searching for 3 non-Roblox evolution Pokemon. I mean, if you're already looking for, or Jacques, 2 evolution Pokemon. So if you had Pidgeotto, Jacques would be perfect. Yeah, you search for Pidgeot and Charizard, Pidgeotto and Charmeleon. Yeah, I think a one of Jacques maybe not a bad pick anymore to get around Bidoof. That's actually a really good idea to get around this stuff. I like that. Next up, I got 2 for 1. We got Dragapult and then Dragapult Iron Thorns.
Okay,
I put
base
Iron
Dragapult
Thorns in high A. I put base Dragapult in B because I think base Dragapult. I think base Dragapult is really good, but again, I think just playing a little bit slower is gonna affect it. It's not gonna like hurt it. It's just going to affect it. Whereas I think Iron Thorns Dragapult just plays its game and just kind of sits there and vibes.
I would have to say that I put base Dragapult up towards the top of A. Dragapult just has what it needs right now. Item lock isn't really as hurtful to Dragapult. It can sit there, it can swing, it can do what it needs to do without much worry from Bidoof. Bars. Anyway, you sit there and you're staring at Iron Thorns Dragapult, and it's like it's still you're still playing Dragapult and you still have the Iron Thorns there. It's just not as good because if you're playing against the Bidoof Frostlass, you're taking steady damage from that. Monkey Dory can move that damage around, and all of a sudden your Dragapult's in a bit of a rough spot. You know, like I've always said before, if you're a good Dragapult player, you know your damage counters, you can absolutely annihilate in this format, especially.
Any other Pokemon, 30 damage counters on one Bidoof, and you got 30 left to play with. Yeah,
exactly.
I also got Dragapult in high A.
Exactly, and I got the Iron Thorns Dragapult. As far as the tier list goes right now, because I'm like remaking one, I have my own on a separate tab. I have the one we're making right now on this one. I got Iron Thorns Dragapult right behind the Dusknoir, but I also have the regular Dragapult right above the Bidoof Dusknoir. I think that if Dragapult right now, if you haven't played it, give it a shot. You're gonna perform, and that's why I think Dragapult is like, if not one of the best decks in the format.
I think what we were talking about, how Charizard needs to change into, I think Dragapult, base Dragapult, already is that deck. It already relied on Dracloaks, a ton of them. Maybe now your rare candies were saved for your Dusknoir line. If you played Pidgeot, it was saved for your Pidgeot line, but it was never truly necessary for you to function because you had that Dragapult. And many builds played TM Evo too. You only need 2 energy, which used to be a problem and made Charizard better. Now there's Crispin, which takes out that need. You also always played Arven. You still get your Sparkling Crystal, which Bidoof doesn't turn off. Like, this deck is perfect for the beginning of an item lock Bidoof type format. I think it could get around a lot. You still also get access to Briar, which closes out so many anticlimactic games because your opponent can take 3 prize cards for literally nothing. Like for almost no work. It's crazy. I think just like you said, I also, without even you saying it, I had base Dragapult under Archaladin but above Bidoof Dusknoir, and then I had Dragapult Iron Thorns under Bidoof Dusknoir. There it is. Yeah, every reason you said too. So I like that. Sorry to knock you, Josh, but
no, it's okay.
We got you on the 2 for 1, dude. That's why there's 3 of us.
Nothing I can do,
bro. Next up, we got the new deck, the first video I made in Prismatic Evolution's Flareon EX.
I think this thing just sits in C. I mean, like, I mean, it's not the worst deck. It's not the best. I think it exists. It's there. It can perform. Listen, I'm not hating. I'm not hating. I just think that almost all of the evolutions are like so beyond mid, except for like Jolteon and Flareon, which you can make an argument for. But I just think into this format, I mean, we're gonna have to see the matchups. We're gonna have to see the spreads because maybe at the regionals this weekend, someone takes Flareon and Jolteon on like a god run, and we see like the matchups against like actual like legitimate pro players in these matches. I just think that as of today, Flareon and Jolteon sit in the like upper of C. They can go to B. I just think that they're at the top of C.
I think.
What's up, Josh?
I think there's just something that we haven't found yet with the evolutions. I don't know, all of them necessarily probably won't be good, but I think like Flareon, Jolteon.
I think Flareon.
So like
Jolteon
maybe one or two. Maybe one or two others might find like just a little sprinkle somewhere, but like I think Flareon and Jolteon give them a little bit. Like let them develop, let people play with them.
Flareon right now is a don't play. I got it in D. It's not a good deck. It's not a good deck because it's not consistent. It's not a good deck because it's not fun. It's just not a good deck because it's not strong enough right now. Okay, if you're bringing it to a local tournament and you're playing against some crazy decks that I probably play to a local tournament, sure, it'll do great. I don't think 130 damage is strong. It's not even strong enough to KO a V-Star. If you can't KO a V-Star without a damage modifier, like in 2 shots, I already do not think it's a great deck. That's pretty much why I put Flygon in this same spot. That being said, you guys did bring up Jolteon. I think Jolteon is a much, much better rogue deck. You get access to an attack that does 280 damage for 2 energy, which is great. It's got a free retreat, so you could pivot to and from it very easily. You can play it with Cornerstone Ogre, or Teal Mask Ogerpon, excuse me, so you can accelerate the energy needed to discard and swing 280 so easily. I think Jolteon is, without Flareon, I'm talking pure Jolteon, is the evolution deck that's going to perform at the highest level. And I'm kind of calling that now. Right now, I think it's Rogue because we got to figure out the list, kind of what Josh was touching on. But I think Jolteon is innately more powerful than Flareon. Even though Flareon has energy setup, I don't think it's needed if you look at just Jolteon as a deck. So, yeah.
Yeah, my only thing with Flareon, and this is, I'm only asking you because you're the guy. You don't think that the top attack with the energy acceleration will never find any sort of familiarity to RCS?
I think now I get what you mean when you said I'm the guy. I'm not gonna lie, the thought crossed my mind. It's the way that one, it needs fire energy, which automatically means it's only gonna combo with fire Pokemon. Similar to how Garchomp is naturally gonna only combo with fighting Pokemon. I think both of them remind me of Arceus, and already found a spot in my mind that I cannot wait to use them at the right time. I just think the difference with Flareon is it's a lot weaker than Garchomp EX. Garchomp EX accelerates energy, neither of which are super strong. Both the harder swinging one swings 160, Arceus swings 200, so sure, it's a little different. One of them only accelerates fighting energy, one of them Flareon accelerates any type of basic energy, but it's a lot weaker. I think Garchomp is the stronger accelerator that's Arceus-like because it's 320 HP and free retreat. Flareon has a 2 retreat cost, and it's got 260 HP if I'm not mistaken, so it's pretty easy. 270, 260, doesn't matter. It's under 280. It's easy to one-shot for a lot of decks. And that's the type of stuff that I think holds Flareon back. Jolteon is just as weak, sure, but I think it's easier to get more aggressive. Out the gate, turn 2, you could swing 280. Flareon, turn 2, you're swinging 130. That's a very big difference. That's over double the damage. So that's why I thought there was a bit of a difference in the decks. But want to keep both in C. You both had it in C. I got both in C. I definitely have Flareon at the bottom of C, though.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Word. Actually, Flygon EX was next. I still have Flygon and don't play. I know a couple people were like, oh, but the poison build of Flygon. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's better. I still have it in D. I don't think it swings hard enough. I think it's too easy to gust around. And now that you're playing the poison build, if that's the build you want to go with, it's not hard to KO those poison Pokemon that allow you to do more damage. Or, again, just gust up a Flygon and do more damage onto those. And I think since we're going into a Dragapult format, if you're using the poison build and you're using that single prize Petra more, that is going to be very easy for your opponent to set up big multiple prize card KOs with the Dragapult deck. So yeah, I get Flygon and D.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen anyone even attempt to use this at anything other than our locals. So, I mean, like...
Yeah, I'm with you. Gardevoir EX up next.
I put it in A. Middle of A. I think that I don't know. I think that item lock is gonna hurt it a little bit, yeah. But I think that just the Curlia draw. No, it didn't lose. No, it didn't lose Curlia yet. Never mind, I'm crazy.
No.
Yeah, I think the Curlia draw is a lot of help. I think that it just uses a lot of different single prize attackers. That with Curlia, you're gonna be able to find one way. You're gonna find your things one way or another with this deck, and it just depends if you can end up getting your energy discard. So I don't really know exactly where it would be. I put it in A because I think it's still gonna perform well, but I mean we just gotta wait and see. Like it could fall.
Totally slept on how this deck has been playing TM Evo for the past 2 months.
Absolutely.
I got it in A. You're a stage 2 attacker that's been relying on TM Evo, and not only that, you've also been playing Monkey Dory since it came out. Monkey Dory does 30 damage, Badoo has 30 HP.
And not only that, but like I mean, I personally have this right below Dragapult. You have access to such good single prize attackers. Your Drifloons and your Screamtails just annihilate things immediately. I mean, I'm a Guardy hater at heart. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are freaks. But when I say hate, I mean I hate it because you guys are so good. You guys make Guardy look easy. And I hate to say that you make it look easy, but you make one of the hardest decks to play in the history of Pokemon easy. And I love that for you guys. But we hate it so much. You guys are freaks. I love it. You don't get hurt by item lock as much. You still have your draw engines. You still have your abilities, which is basically all you really need. I mean, you don't necessarily need to rare candy into Gardevoir. You don't even really do that almost ever. You play your TM Evos, like Chris just said. You have your Curlia draw engine, which is huge. It is the best ability in the trading card game. Like, you have so many things going for you right now. It's just amazing. You guys are in a really good spot at this meta. Happy for you. Before it goes away eventually.
Yeah, I think Dragapult is going to be a miserable matchup. I think Dragapult and Gardevoir naturally both do so well into Badoo. I always kind of thought Dragapult had that edge on Gardevoir because they could spread damage counters around so well. And I think that's why I'm also going to keep it under Dragapult. But if you're looking, it's not even that bad into Dragapult. I mean, you could still one-shot it with Drift Blooms and stuff like that. You know, like, you still have a solid fight and argument to make. The other thing that I think gives Dragapult the edge, not only can you take KOs via damage counters, but you have access to Briar in the late game. And I think those two things kind of keep Guardy in the middle of what I have as A, under Dragapult for that. I think, honestly, now that I'm looking at this list more too, I kind of want to move Arch Aladdin under Dragapult and Guardy. I don't know.
That's very fair.
I feel like the three of these are very interchangeable. I want to stare at these three, being Dragapult, Guardy, Arch Aladdin, Dialga, and then I'll come back to you guys and see if I want to move it again. I'm sure I'll probably want to, but I think these are kind of the top 3 decks right now is going to be what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's an argument that Dragapult will be BDIF. There's an argument there.
Any of these, I'll stand for a good argument for. I think I'd at least agree with Guardy, just because, again, Dragapult exists, and I think Dragapult is much more favored.
Really very
which is why I think I like the Dragapult argument for BDIF more. I don't know, like, personal opinion, I don't think we're at BDIF level yet. Again, BDIF level, as far as I'm concerned, you have one bad matchup max, period. I don't know if Dragapult can say that. I think there's a couple matchups for Dragapults that aren't great. I think for BDIF, for me, just as someone who pretty much learned the TCG through toxic metas, if you're not at a Mew VMAX or Silver Tempest Lugia type of performance, I don't think I'll have a BDF until we see that. Until it's been long enough where those aren't even, like, relevant in my mind anymore. But for now, I still feel like, since there's Sword Shield cards, that is required for a deck to be BDI if it needs that type of dominance.
Yeah.
I
think I think Archaludon can get there, just because I think that getting your Dialga set up and being able to take potentially 4 prizes to end the game is just utterly ridiculous, man.
Oh yeah, I agree.
And again,
I think it could fight for an argument in BDIF. Maybe more than Guardy. I don't know. I've got them below the other two right now just because I feel like Dragapult and Guardy are a little more favored into Arch Aladdin. But I'm not sure. I'd have to see the matchups played more. I'd have to really look. And we don't have much data on Prismatic Evolutions, so it's hard to see how the changes needed for Prismatic Evolutions have affected the players into each other between these three.
Yeah.
Word. Jumping in next, we got Goldengo and Togekiss.
This might come as a surprise to a lot of people and might be a hot take. I got this in Don't Play. I think that Golden Go is suffering from the same problems that Chimpao is going to have in this format, and it's that you rely so much on your energy retrieval cards to the point to where if you're trying to hit like a big KO or something, you're just going to end up falling short immediately after. You have your Energy Search Pro, which is usually big for that first massive knockout, but then after that, if you can't retrieve those energies back, you're going to be in a really rough spot. I think relying on the coin flip, essentially, that's basically what you're doing. You have something on the bench that's just going to sit there. It's not really meant to do anything other than maybe, on a 50-50 chance, get you that extra prize card that you're looking for. But even if you don't hit that, then that's just going to be sitting there. And that thing is very easily taken out by things like damage counters from your Dragapults. Your Gardevoirs are just going to use their Scream Tails on it if they don't already take out your Golden Goes with it. Archaludin is just literally going to say, yeah, no thank you. I mean, there's a lot of decks in the format that target your bench, and that bench spot is better used by something else. Golden Go, I feel like there's a potential for it. When the Energy Search Pro first came out, it was insane, but now because of that reliance on your superior energy retrievals, your energy retrievals in general, and your rare candies to get your Togekiss out, I think that you're going to be falling short in a lot of matchups, and it's not necessarily even due to the item lock, it's just to the coin flip. You don't have a lot of bulk. You have your draw engine, which is Golden Go. There's just a lot that is going against you right now, and I feel like if you're going to play a deck like this, you can play Chimpao, but Chimpao is still a don't play for the same reasons that Golden Go is. The thing that you gain with Chimpao is like you do a little bit extra damage, you have the free energies everywhere, but you're still not going to be able to do a lot afterwards, that big attack.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to say about it as well is, I don't know if you touched on this, I may have missed it. I think if you're playing Goldengo and your opponent starts with Badoo, it's instant. You lose. You can't get Energy Search Pro. You can't play it. You can't get your Togekiss. So even when you do end up finding a way to kill this Badoo, even though it only has 30 health, you only need 1 energy. When you do end up being able to do that, you're screwing up your prize trade. Togekiss doesn't matter as much anymore, anyways. I think so. I think even your early game with, like you said, not even so much with Badoo. Goldengo was on the downfall anyways. Now with Badoo coming out, it just accelerates its downfall even more because now Energy Search Pro can't be played early game. Rare Candy can't be played early game to take a 2 prize off the Badoo with Togekiss if you even get the coin flip right. So it's like, I think there's just so much that goes against Goldengo that it's just on a downward spiral, and it's just going to take a bit for it. It might just be dead. Not even going to say it might come back. It might just be dead.
So I had an argument for Goldengo to go to C. I don't anymore. I was like, but like bottom C, and then I'm like, but like, why? I'm like, I'm questioning myself. I do just have one thing though, because of what you guys have said, and my argument, just so it is presented, is how is Goldengo D and Flareon is C? That doesn't make sense to me. Okay, sure, Badoo ruins the deck. It's still Goldengo. It still does pretty well into a lot of other matchups. I think it's a lot more 50-50s now, than like favored matchups, but I think there are some solid matchups still for Goldengo. I am just going to say it here. If Goldengo's in D, I'm putting Flareon in D.
Which is fair.
That's where it started for me.
I don't think Flareon is better than Goldengo. If Goldengo's D, there's no better don't play deck than Goldengo.
Yeah. Like, if you want to play Steel, just play Archaludon.
Yeah. No, like, actually.
My only argument for putting Flareon in C was that we've seen it for a week. That was my only idea. That was my only.
I think that's why I have.
Oh, no, I'm not saying it's strong. Yeah, I'm just saying that
Jolteon is more of that, like, rogue play. I think Flareon is a don't play. Just like when Flygon was new, people loved it. It's an awesome Pokemon. You want to see it do well. It's got a fun attack. It doesn't mean it's phenomenal. I think Flareon is kind of in that same boat. We want it to be amazing. It's
not gonna be.
It's just not necessarily. It's not gonna be. It's just not as easy to combo perfectly quickly like I think Jolteon is. I think although you get that energy acceleration that could combo to anything, I think Jolteon is much easier to pair with anything because of how much energy acceleration you have in the format and how easy it is to set up. As well, so I think Jolteon is more of our rogue evolution deck, whereas Flareon, if Goldengo's in don't play, Flareon's got to go there too.
Absolutely.
I don't know where we're at. I'm gonna skip around. I just have to look up something just to see if I'm right.
No, you're good.
But I think that Jolteon might just—it's not a basic, so it was a little iffy. It might just find its way into Miraidon if Miraidon sticks around as a decent replacement
See,
for.
like,
Because you have to get rid of energy.
Well,
You have to
Raichu.
evolve and get rid of energy. Yeah, Raichu doesn't evolve though.
Yeah, that's why I said it's a little
That's
iffy
the
because it's to
only-
evolve.
Yeah,
But
that's the only thing. It's definitely something worth experimenting with though, and especially now that you said it.
depends on how desperate
Post-rotation, I
Miraidon
feel
players
like
are
it's-
post-rotation. That's what I meant. Yeah, more or
Yeah,
less.
it's not the worst. I mean, worst comes to worst, someone tries it and it doesn't work. Like, that's fine. That's
Yeah.
a card game. That's important for people to do. But it's actually not a bad shout post-rotation. I'm going to keep that in mind because I've had people ask me, oh, what does Miraidon do about Raichu? A 1-1 Jolteon line doesn't seem awful. Doesn't seem
See,
awful.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
When it comes to Jolteon, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was thinking that maybe, now that I mentioned Pikachu, maybe people try and do Jolteon with Lost Zone. Like, that might be something that comes out. It might not be the greatest way to play it, but, you know, Mirage Gate, just find your 2 energy with a crystal, swap back and forth, you Comfy, and then you just switch cart. Like, you might have ways out of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be possible.
No, I don't hate that at all. Yeah, I don't know. I like Jolteon in the C spot. It's a good rogue deck. There's a lot you can do with it. Gouging Fire, our next pick.
I have this in the
I have
same
at the top
spot.
of D.
Yeah.
Borderline bottom C. I think this is a fun, kind of aggressive basic deck. I think the Delphox brings some more versatility. I think with the addition of Badoo, although it's a fire type deck, this deck losing items is not fun. You kind of need the vessels to get going, to get energy in a discard, to use Basin, to loop energy back, and then get Sadas and stuff like that. And I think kind of losing speed with this deck is going to hurt an insane amount. So yeah, I got it at the top of D.
I have it at the very, very bottom of C, just for the very, very low potential that it could be fun. There's a low, there's like a 25% chance.
Into Guardy, it's rough, and into Dragapult, it's definitely.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's why.
So
it's
I've
not.
got
I don't
it
think it's
D.
quite D because there's like a 25% chance it could be fun.
Yeah.
But
for a regional, this is a.
I'm not afraid to put it in D. I'm not afraid to put it in D at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think for San Antonio, which this tier list right now is the predictor for, I don't think it's worth the play. I think it's more of a don't play type of deck.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear
Absolutely.
for a local, definitely a good C.
Yeah.
Definitely good.
Oh, yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
good.
This is a fun deck. It's just, you don't want to take it to an upper level. You're just not going to find success.
Yeah. Hydreigon EX up next.
I love this deck. Don't get me wrong. I got it in C. Maybe you can make an argument for B. And the reason I have it at C is, like I've said 1,000 times, people keep experimenting with this build. It's the most consistent when you have it with Pidgeot.
Yeah.
Just find what you need. Getting Neo upper and then Crispin is just so easy. It's almost borderline, like, why aren't people doing this? It got 2 insane attacks. It's got the bulk. It's got the support. If you just play it how it's supposed to be, you're going to have a couple rough matchups, sure. But there's a lot of things that you can do with this deck, but I just don't think it has that strong power yet.
Yeah.
It might get it very, very soon, but I just don't think at the very moment it is the pick. I have it at the, like, tippy top of rogue decks.
Yeah. No, actually, literally the same. I put it at the top of C. There's no better way to put it. It's a strong card. It'll be a great rogue pick until maybe post-rotation. I think post-rotation will see it take off a lot. For now, top of C seems perfect for it. I think we're kind of just waiting for that Hydreigon peak, that Hydreigon heyday.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, well said. Incineroar EX. Someone's pick for the Rogue Regional. Shameless plug if you guys don't mind me jumping in here. Rogue Regional February 8th. If you guys want to tune in, see an awesome stream between my friends and I in my apartment. 2 of those friends are actually on this call right here. Been yapping with me for a while. We are all playing an insane amount of Rogue decks and seeing which one is the most powerful, at least that we could come up with and had the cards for, or most of the cards for. We got Scovillain EX. And you know what? Actually, no. You can't flex your guy like that and not have me pull out mine. Yo, low-key, actually, I'm about to make my deck an archetype too, because my deck definitely deserves to be up there. I've been farming the ladder with mine. We got Goodra V-Star is going to be my play to the Rogue tournament, but all of us have some insane decks. Avery and I were doing some testing for it last night, working on some changes, if you will, to our list. Definitely tune into that stream. Bunch of giveaways, bunch of fun, and we're gonna see who takes down the tournament and gets the championship Rogue Regional mat. Anyways, Incineroar, a deck in the Rogue Regional. Way stronger than I thought. I think this is actually an upper C tier deck. I'm going to put it behind Hydreigon. I think this deck is crazy versatile. It's not insanely item reliant. I think you kind of fall into that same issue Charizard's in. I think that's a very roundable issue with TM Evo. Incineroar being able to swing for 1 fire energy and do 240 and then burn your opponent's active Pokemon against most decks is nuts. And then having access to Reprisal from Litten with Relicanth in play, swinging for even more damage when your opponent doesn't one-shot you is even crazier. You're playing a fire deck, you got access to Radiant Charizard. You're a Stage 2 deck, you get access to Pidgeot. I think it's a fun rogue deck. I think this one is better placed than Goldengo. Like, I actually think Incineroar is way stronger than...
Absolutely, yes.
I agree.
Yeah. Super fun list. Definitely give it a shout. And if you haven't, check out the video on it if you want to see how it's played. There's a whole video where you could get into how it works if you're not familiar with it. Next up, Iron Thorns EX.
I got this in Rogue. I think it's falling off. I think that Iron Thorns is still it's a good pick, but just because you rely a lot on things that are going to be shafted in this newer format, I have it right behind Hydreigon and Incineroar. It's there. It's the same thing as Stall. Like, it's there, you gotta respect it and things like that. I just think that if you're gonna play a deck like this, you're better off playing Stall.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, honestly, I could agree.
Pretty much.
Dragapult could get around it pretty easily. Gardevoir has always found ways to deal with Iron Thorns pretty well. Arch Aladdin, alright, maybe that's a bit of a better matchup for Iron Thorns. Badoo, I feel like it could take a Badoo deck. And then Dragapult, Iron Thorns, like, just our A-tier decks alone, it's got a 50-50 into one of these, positive matchup into another, and then it's got some bad matchups into the other 3. Definitely a rogue deck. I think because it's a rogue deck, people might sleep on it too much. Someone's going to take this deck, and they're probably going to do insanely well with it. I think overall, though, a lot of Iron Thorns, they're not going to have the most amount of success. I just feel like it's kind of a hostile format for Iron Thorns right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that. I like that in mid-C. We got Cloth Terrapagos up next.
Recently, this thing has been taking off. I've seen it almost everywhere. Like, in almost any tournament you can find, there's at least one person that looks like they just crawled out of bed and they're gonna take this deck to like top 16. I have it at like the middle towards the back end of B.
B? Yeah, me too, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yep.
My thing is, I think that it's similar to a couple of decks that I mentioned where people are just trying to find the ideal 60. Like, I think there's just a lot of different ways that it's being played. Not a lot of plays.
This deck has a very consistent 60.
You think?
Yes. Yeah. No.
I think there's. I don't mean. I shouldn't say like that. I shouldn't say full 60. I mean like tech card wise. People are just trying to fix the matchups. No?
I really don't think it does. No, because it naturally has a bunch of options. And I don't mean to like call you out on it. I just...
No, you're good.
This deck already plays Terrapagos to get access to Area 0 Underdepth. So it's already played Electrode with super effective glasses to deal with things like Charizard. It's playing a single prize attacker that swings for one shot on pretty much every non-Rulebox Pokemon in the game. It's two-shotting Rulebox Pokemon. If you're not one-shotting them, you can use Terrapagos to do that since you're play a couple of DTEs. You got Petrarunt with the Petrarunt EX and the single prize Petrarunt to donk decks like Gardevoir and give you good one-prize attackers into Gardevoir as well. Like, I think this deck doesn't really need techs because of Terrapagos. It actually has access to an insane amount. Because of Terrapagos and Precious Trolley.
Yeah.
Terrapagos and Precious Trolley cracked out Cloth and gave it pretty much all the tools it needed to deal with anything. Like, I think just to say it's a Cloth deck at this point and not so much of a Cloth box deck is more like, I feel like Cloth is doing it an injustice. It's strayed much less from Cloth, where we saw with the Spicy Curry pre-rotation, to more of a, hey, there's 2 Cloths, 3 Cloths, and 7 other attackers.
Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna put it a little higher in my B, actually.
I like it at the end of B. I think
it
it gets shut down a lot by the item lock Badoo decks. Ancient Box has always been kind of a rough matchup. Dragapult's going to be a little scary too because of damage counter spread, but Cloth has taken down these decks before. Obviously not Badoo. We'll see how it does with Badoo. It could go toe-to-toe with Gardevoir. It can take down Dragapult with the right setup. You do have access to donking them as well. Arch Aladdin, you're a single prize Pokemon that can two-shot their two prizers. An Unlucky Turo could change the tide of the game, but you, I'm sure, can figure something out. Like, I like lower B. I think that's a very fair placement for a deck like this.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah. Lost Box. How do we feel about Lost Box?
Why? I feel like there's, like I've said before, I feel like Law Zone Pikachu is just like,
yeah,
there's a lot going on there. And there's a lot of better Law Zone attackers that you could use instead of Pikachu. Don't get me wrong, like...
Yeah. I think right now we're seeing less variety in Lost Box.
Yeah.
I think it's Lost Box Pikachu, but Sable's Art is the only one with a separate thumbnail because that is an innately different Lost Box deck. I think just Lost Box as a whole, it doesn't matter if it's Pikachu. It really doesn't matter what it is. If it's not Sable's Art, I got it in the middle C behind Iron Thorns. For probably everything you were going to say.
Yeah, I mean, like, I just can't agree more. You basically just summarized my whole point.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's not item lock into a Lost Box deck. Yeah, good night.
Really argue
Pikachu's decent. You can spread damage counters with Dragapult. You can get around that well. You got Star Chronos if you need to take two prizes off of it. You could always do that. It's not the end of the world. Gardevoir has been scary for Lost Box. You trade pretty well. Plus, if they use Gardevoir EX, it's a tanky attacker. You might not be able to KO. Yeah. I got it in C. Low C.
Yeah, just know that it's possible. If you play Lost Box, just know that it's possible. Because it did top 64 this weekend.
This weekend wasn't Prismatic Evolutions, though. That's why I had such a weird time figuring out my tier list. It's because the results from the last tournament are in a completely different format than the one we're in. And I think because decks have to change around Badoo, even though it's only really one new archetype that came out, the changes it's still a new format. It's still something people kind of have to prep in a different way for. And I think that's why it's in C. It's got some fun matchups into a lot of decks. Some of them are a lot better than others. I think there's a lot more harder matchups or 50-50 matchups, but I think a nice rogue spot is a fair placement for Lost Box, even with the top 64. And a top 64, I think, proves that point. Great rogue deck. We had one in top 64. Perfect rogue deck. Great way to define that. Next up, we got Lugia Archeops.
I got this baby right in between Stall and Angel Box. I think Lugia is in a really great spot right now. It doesn't lose too much because of Badoo. I think that...
Wait, where's your Stall deck? Mine's at the bottom of B.
Mine's like, my Stall is right after Angel Box.
Oh, man. All right, I'll put mine up. I'll put it in the middle of B. I don't know. Petra is just hard. But go on. This is a Lugia rant.
Lugia has always been that deck. It exists. It's sort of like when Josh did the Stall thing, where it goes up and then it goes down, it goes up and goes down. Lugia has that thing where it goes up and it stays up for a little bit, and then it's a lot less like a variety. It's either on top or it's on its bottom. There's no like in between. And with Lugia not losing too much to item lock, I mean, you're playing how many energy? Like you're not really worried about your capturing aromas being locked, because like you said earlier, like you're probably just gonna flip tails anyway. You're gonna miss your Archeops. You have a lot of discard your hand to draw cards, so you're not really getting supporter locked. I mean, you have a lot going for you.
So,
and I think that
No, finish. Sorry. Go on.
I just think that Lugia is in a decent spot right now. I mean, it's probably like it's a good pick if you play Lugia, but if you're not like a Lugia player and you're not Rahul ready type of testing with Lugia, you're probably not going to do as well as you think you are.
Can I?
That's what I was going to say.
Can I?
Absolutely.
Big counterpoint. Josh, are you in more agreement with Avery?
Yes.
All right. Large counterpoint. I think this deck is arguably the BDIF right now. Like huge counterpoint. Like this might be better than Dragapult. I personally think it is. I think, like you said, you don't change your list for Badoo. This deck just got access to Regigigas, which for less energy than Minccino can one-shot any Terra EX in the game except for like Palafin EX and Torterra EX, which I wouldn't be too worried about seeing at a regional. Dude, yeah, this deck is nuts right now. If you look at, like, if you pull up, I think the last 3 tournaments on Limitless that were Prismatic Evolutions legal, With over 100 players, dude, Lugia dominated the top 16 in like all of them. Like actually dominated. And I think for San Antonio, we're gonna see a similar type of showing for Lugia. I think people needed Regigigas to bring this deck back. It's always had a decent Gardevoir matchup. You have plenty of single price Pokemon you can use to trade single price for single price in Gardevoir, and then pull off a Guscale and their Gardevoir EX, take 2 price cards. Now you're one-shotting Dragapult EXs. Dialga and Archaladin, that's going to be a bit of a harder matchup, but you didn't worry about. Ancient Box, you got a bunch of single price Pokemon. Stall, you have Jet Energy. Stall's always had a trash matchup into Lugia. Charizard, again, Regigigas fixes this. Now you can take a KO on Charizard with Regigigas. You could take a KO on a second Charizard if you need with the Chinchino, and then you could clean up the late game with the Blood Moon or Saluna if you want, or any other attacker onto Pheasantipity, Rotom, decks like that. I think Lugia is absolutely nuts right now. I think it has kind of everything it needs to hold its own, and I think Lugia and Dragapult are my closest arguments to BDIF.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I forgot Regigigas even existed.
That's fair. That is the most slept
now that
on
you
card in Prismatic Evolution.
I didn't even account for it.
It is one of tech card in Lugia, and it absolutely changes everything. Absolutely.
I still, personal belief, I have it right below Dragapult simply for consistency reasons. But I think that you definitely had me at Regigigas. Completely forgot that card existed.
No,
had I remembered, it would have been stuck in, the top of A.
Yeah.
And it's so unfortunate because a lot of these V-Stars are getting so much more powerful cards right before.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, Lugia's been powerful. I'm so okay with Lugia being trash for the rest of the format.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not. Regigigas is what it needed to give this deck the momentum to close out the format the way it was introduced. These V-Stars, I'm not going to lie, they're going to have some poetic endings. I'm curious to see which one is going to take down the format as, the best V-Star overall. Honestly, I'm so down for a special episode 2 on which V-Star we think might have been the best, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that would be a really fun thing.
Off topic. What deck won Worlds last year?
Thorns. And we're not going to get into that because we're not going to get into that.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I wish
there was a lot
that
of drama
V-Stars
with Worlds.
I wish V-Stars didn't rotate until after Worlds, just so we could see which one would take the ending.
I mean, Regidrago came in second.
Yes.
No, Roaring Moon came in second. Regidrago came in third and fourth.
It's not
I
first.
would if you were to ask me right now which V-Star is the best, I would probably say at this very second, I would argue Palkia. I think Palkia has got a whole lot going for it.
Still going Lugia. Lugia is too nuts.
I respectfully
I don't like it. I hate Lugia.
Well, let me change it. Best V-Star overall right now, I do agree with Palkia. But I think that, if I was going to pick one to win a Worlds, I would probably pick Archaladon and Dialga. And I'd pick Dialga.
Okay. That's fair.
Fair.
No, I like those. Yeah, no, we should actually definitely do a special episode about which V-Star is best. That could be a really fun one, actually.
Absolutely no bias as a Chien-Pao player.
No, not at all. Next up, we got our 2 wall decks.
I mean, I can't really see putting them above B. I mean, I feel like just with the amount of stuff that's going to be floating around now, they have really rough matchups. There's a lot of ways to get around it, is what I'm trying to say. But some decks, yeah,
honestly,
I have
the
back end of B at the moment. Thorns. Yeah, I mean, they're gonna fall behind really. It just control decks as a whole. You really rely a lot on your item cards and things like that to sort of hit. You have supporters, obviously. Your supporters are big, but your item cards are sort of backing you up. And just one single hit from a Badoo can take you out if you're playing any wall deck or control deck, because that just gives your opponent an extra turn to think, okay, so they can't do this, they can't do that. I can do this and I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think these decks are very how do I say this? I think they depend a lot on their pilot and to perform. And not only that, I think that makes it more. I think that makes it more difficult with Badoo, because that makes it harder on said pilot, gives you less to do I think these decks just fall down more with Badoo because
I agree. I think
it
it's
makes it
harder
harder
on
on
Pilot, though, not to necessarily play the deck,
Yeah.
but how you built the deck, because there's a lot
Yeah,
of how
yeah.
you built these. So it's almost on like the deck creator. If you're the
That's
pilot
what I
and
mean,
you
yeah, just
created
the
the deck,
person.
I think that helps because you probably know it a lot because it is a control deck. I just think the format is too unstable. Control decks thrive on a stable format where you can predict a lot, and I think right now we've got too many floating pieces. It's, I think, very hard to predict playability and how many people will be playing what deck because there's a lot of amazing picks right now. I think I've got it at lower C, like lower mid C for that reason too. And I'm going to bring Pidgeot Control out here too since we're just on the topic of control decks. I think this is going to be my mid B control deck. I think Pidgeot Control, it's easier to tech for a lot more. It's got a rough-ish matchup into Badoo, but I mean, you could figure out ways to deal with, you know, like a Badoo. I think you could figure out ways to attack it and whatnot with stuff in the deck. But I think in terms of the decks we're also seeing, like Dragapult, like Lugia, like Gardevoir, Pidgeot Control can control those a little bit better than wall decks. So I do have that as, you know, I'm going to go low B. I'm actually going to put this one bottom B. But I think we just came off a Pidgeot Control dominated meta, and I think with the introduction of Prismatic Evolutions, now this is going to be like a bottom B. I need to see how we adapt Pidgeot to deal with this.
Absolutely, yeah.
Word. Jumping into the next one, Miraidon.
I mean, I got it in B. I think it's there. I think it's decent.
Yeah.
You have a couple rough matchups. You have a couple good matchups. I think it's just like the definition of mid right now.
Popularity of Lugia goes up. Miraidon naturally is going to go up too. I mean, you're playing an electric attacker that can one-shot Lugia, and you're playing Iron Hands, which can deal with pretty much the rest of their unevolved bench and take extra prize cards. I agree. I think lower B. I've got it under Charizard. But, yeah. No, I think it's actually not the worst time to take it out. Your Badoo matchup's a little rough, but once you get out of that item lock and set up a Raikou for 2 energy manual attachment-wise, you could Iron Hands the rest of your way through the game. You can do a whole lot. So yeah, no, I like this as a B tier deck.
Yep.
Next up, we got, ooh, these are going to be 2 fun ones. Palkia Dusknoir and Palkia Noctowl.
Palkia Noctowl, I love. I had a really great showing this weekend at regionals. Oh my god, it had a great showing.
I put that mid A. I put that in A strictly because of how well it performed this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I got that thing sitting like right in between Badoo Dusknoir and Archaladon.
Call me
crazy.
too.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I like that.
I think it sits right there. Like, it's such a good deck. We finally saw it perform live into this format. It's going to be so much better.
Yeah.
When it comes to Palkia or Trapagos Dusknoir, why would you even play that? Like, I will say it until the end of time. That is like the definition of no play.
Palkia
I just don't think it's worth it.
No,
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think Palkia Noctowl is definitely the stronger pick. I do like it in A tier. It does swing pretty well into a lot of these matchups. We're bringing back TM Evo builds, which means Radiant Charizard is, or not Radiant Charizard, oh my god, Radiant Greninja is going to be swinging for more damage in terms of like hurting your opponent's setup. Palkia is always a strong attacker. Now you get access to Area 0 Underdepth, so now Palkia can take one-shots on things it couldn't, like your Dragapult EXs. Lugia V-Stars is going to be easier to take those down. Gardevoir EX is something you could chase down, yeah. No, I like Palkia Noctowl a whole lot at the moment. Next up, we got Raging Bolt.
Oof.
I
Got it in B, and like a lower B.
Yeah.
It's simply because like Regidrago right now is in a rough spot with Badoo. Regidrago relies a lot on your things like your energy switches. You need your Earthen Vessels. You need your Ultra Balls. You need your level balls. You need to find a way to get out your Ogre Pawns. It's going to be really rough to do that when you're item locked. And on top of that, because Raging Bolt is a turbo deck, it is meant to take out things like Regidrago. And because Regidrago isn't as big of a threat right now, Raging Bolt just gets smoked in a lot of matchups now. Just because it was like, it's not the main combat to Regidrago. Like, yeah, sure, you can still set up. You can still swing really hard, really easily. I just feel like there's so many other decks that outperform it.
No, I actually just took Regidrago out too, put it next to Raging Bolt because it was next, but I think both of these are the definition of middle B tier. I think they're going to be popular picks. I don't necessarily think they're going to be the best. I think Lugia, Dragapult, Guardy, and even Archaladon kind of take both decks down fairly well right now. I think that's going to bump him down immediately out of the A spot because it's 4 decks it's not swinging well into. Just like you said, Badu item lock is going to hurt both of these decks. One of them is not going to get access to Earthen Vessel, Energy Retrieval, cards like that. The other one is not going to get access to Energy Switch and Ultra Ball. And I think losing both of those things in decks like Raging Bolt and Regidrago are too fundamental. They're too critical towards the deck's success. So pairing that with some rough matchups, I got him in mid B. They're still powerful decks. They're still very popular decks. They're still going to be played a lot. I just think, like you said, this isn't totally the time for it.
Yeah, I think their time has faded. I think we saw way too much of the Raging Bolt being dominant and the Regidrago being dominant.
Yeah.
I think it's time for them to rest the Easy Prince.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just got dominant so quick, and I think people just kind of got sick of them. So it's like people aren't motivated either to try and keep them and bring them back. Force them to
work, yeah, in a format where there's just easier decks to play. No, I agree. Regigigas up next.
I have it. I want to say it's Sapas, just because I love it so much. I love the concept. I love the idea. When you get everything set up, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I just personally don't think it's really worth like bringing out to like a high level play competition.
Dude, I got it mid C for that exact reason. I want to put it top C because it's such a fun deck, but with some minor consistency problems and also some rougher matchups into some of these decks, I think it's gonna fall behind Iron Thorns for me. I think it's a bit better of a play than a wall type deck. I just think it's a bit of a hostile environment for a deck like Regigigas Pikachu EX. So dropping it down in mid C doesn't feel the worst.
Yeah. I agree.
We got Roaring Moon up next.
I mean, I got this thing in B. I mean, you still have your Sada, Dark Patch, Manual Attach, Endgame. Yeah.
Upper B for sure. If you're worried about Badu, you can play the single prize Petron and maybe a Brute Bonnet to get around it. You're already playing an Energy Capsule. I feel like it's not the worst way to tech around Badu. If you're worried about things like Arch Aladdin and, you know, like Lugia, you have Frenzied Gouging. If you can't Oko them, you're swinging for weakness on Gardevoir. Dragapult is going to be a little scarier, but if you absolutely need, you could always Frenzied Gouging it. You set yourself up for, you know, potentially a 3 prize card turn, 4 prize card turn, something like that, but it's not the end of the world. You know, like, Roaring Moon has a funny way of just taking down decks before you could breathe anyways. I got it as upper B.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything really else to be said about it.
Word. Valid. Next up, Sablezard.
I want it to be good so bad. I just don't think it's there with Badu. Dude, I just think it falls off.
I think, I'm not going to lie, if I was going to San Antonio, this might be a deck I would consider playing. I think Badu hurts it, but a Colress plus, because, you know, your opponent's taking another turn to set up because of Badu, a double Colress turn can allow you to go cram, take out Badu, and then proceed as normal. You're swinging for weakness on Dialga V-Star with Radiant Charizard. If you can use Counter Catcher, bring up a benched Arch Aladdin, that's another 2 prize cards. Boom, close out the game, Pheasantipity with the Blood Moon or Saloon if you're using both of those. Gardevoir, it's always swung kind of well into because you're trading single prizers insanely well. And Lugia, Dragapult, those two, a little bit more difficult. I think Lugia is a little bit better for Sablezard. I think both present their own challenges. I think both are manageable. I think this deck is hard to play, and I think that's going to kind of keep it in that rogue tier. But honestly, in terms of the matchup spread, I really don't hate it. I actually think it does pretty okay. So I've got it at the tippy top of C.
I got it right behind Hydreigon. I just think Hydreigon is just like,
it
just sets up a little bit quicker.
Either
you're taking your prize,
Yep. Either way, I think both are honestly interchangeable. If I could put them next to each other, I probably would. We got Sinistra EX up next.
Decent rogue deck. I mean, it's there.
Yeah,
you played it against me a lot.
Dude, honestly, I think it's a low B deck. I think this deck is actually a bit more valid than people have always gave it credit for. This deck just brings a lot to the table. You've got an insane single prize attacker that can bring big Okos. You got Rebrew on an EX Pokemon that can swing for theoretically unlimited damage, depending on how many energy you discard. You can take massive 2 prize KOs that way and get around tanky active Pokemon. So you could take out a Pidgeot, you could take out a Rotom, a Pheasantipity, instead of a Dragapult, instead of a Charizard. So, you know, your opponent can still attack with them, but that's fine. You're just trading 2 prize cards at every turn. So I do have it as a low B deck still.
I put it C for everything you just said, but kind of I put it for C because of everything you just said, but also because of everything you just said. You know what I mean? Whereas, like, I think that how it's just trading can hurt it just as much as it can help it. How it just wants to trade back and forth either way and just keeping your attacker alive. That's kind of the whole way it plays. just that can end up biting it in the butt later on in the game. And that's like quite the only reason I kept it in C instead of B.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't mind. Bottom B, top of C. I like either.
Same thing, yeah, but like
for the same reason we kind of just touched on. Yeah, I rock with that. We got Terrapagos Dusknoir up next, which might be the biggest thing the podcast ever got wrong is this deck being a don't play for the last regional. It definitely wasn't a don't play.
This thing it pulled up. I mean, like, I was taking screen caps. I'm like, yo, are we missing some sauce? Like, let me see the 60.
Yeah. No, I got it in upper B for sure. This deck, we were so wrong about it. I thought it was a don't play. I thought it just didn't have the power. It didn't have the well, it always had consistency. I just didn't think it had the power to clutch up and perform very well. I think after watching it a lot more with this regionals this past weekend, I got Terrapagos in upper B. I think with now Lugia being more dominant and Dragapult doing better, I think Terrapagos is going to be a little bit of a harder pick, a little bit of a harder play. You're going to have some more hard matchups, but I was enlightened on what I was missing out on with Terrapagos.
Yeah. And I'm still a little skeptical. I'm not really sure why. I put lower B just off of gut feeling.
That's
honestly.
Fair. But I need to go off more than gut feeling. This deck right now has the statistics to put it in upper B.
Oh, it's doing great, yeah, but like
I'm gonna keep it in upper B.
Yeah, I would keep it in upper B too. I just feel like if you like Terrapagos so much, just play it with Palkia and Noctowl.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Last up for the day, we have Entei Ogerpon, a very fun turbo box deck. I think it is not the time to play it though, honestly. I'm going to have this one in the tippy top of D. It's very reliant on items. I don't know. Dragapult doesn't seem like the best matchup for it either. It's missing a little bit for me right now. And I think top of D, bottom C. Fun rogue pick. I think we're getting into a bit more of a tankier format, and Entei is going to swing a little harder into those. Losing out on Energy Switch is going to destroy this deck even more than Regidrago, though. So I've got it in D tier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, bring this to your locals. You might 4-0, you might 0-4.
Yeah.
And everything in between. Like, it's there, it's fun. You know, you want your opponent to pick up cards and look at them and wonder, how is this going to work?
Yeah.
But outside of that, I mean, like, if you're going to a regionals and you have like 8 months to prepare with this deck, I still don't think you're going to be like doing really well.
Nah, dude, that's real. Yeah. I got it in don't play. Fun deck. Take down a locals. Not to play for San Antonio.
Yeah.
Bet. Well, that is it for the tier list. We do have the overall tier list actually fitting on screen rather nicely right here, which is always kind of nice. If you want to take any final looks at it before we get into who's that Pokemon, San Antonio is going to be a lot of fun. I'm curious to see how decks do. I think I didn't realize how much changed in the format until we were halfway through this tier list. I think we thought not much was going to change because only really Badoo showed up as a new archetype. I think we can, at least for me, this is a very different tier list than we saw a couple weeks ago, and I'm excited by that. I am happy that A tier is honestly kind of big. Maybe we need to be a little harsher on decks and put more decks in B and C. I'm not sure. I think it's fun, and I'm curious to see where this format goes, though.
Yeah, me too.
Now, for who's that?
I think it's going to be...
Oh, sorry. What's up, Josh?
I think it's going to be a very fun format. I think it's going to be like a very good send-off for Sword Shield era. I think, again, like V-Stars, how we talked about the V-Stars doing what they've been doing recently, like finally coming back a little bit, like right before they rotate out. I think it's been it's going to be a very, very fun next couple months for Pokemon.
Oh, yeah. Now, jumping into who's that Pokemon. The game where one of us, Josh, has selected a Pokemon card and a tiny, tiny clip of it. Avery and I, we're going to do it a little differently just in the purposes of time. Avery and I will be sharing the questions together and trying to guess, who that Pokemon is based on card TCG only questions. Obviously, the card is in the standard format. This is a standard format podcast, so we're keeping it that way. We have 7 questions between the two of us. They have to be Pokemon card related, so I can't ask, is this Pokemon from Gen 5 or later? I can ask, however, is this Pokemon from Scarlet Violet or Sword Shield? So some sort of, or I guess not but, a yes, no question. Is this Pokemon a Sword Shield card? Stuff like that will help us narrow it down. So, Josh, if you would like to share the clip with us, I will pull it up on stream. Oh, you already did. All right, let me open this in browser. Oh, that's super tiny. Avery, do you have it pulled up?
I think I already might have the guess ready.
No way.
Dang it.
Are we like racing to see who guesses it first? By all means, take your guess if you got one.
Is it a slacking EX?
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Dude. Josh, would you like to share us the card so I can throw that up? Well, that was fun. I'm so happy I got to guess today. Thank you, Avery, for stealing the show.
You offered.
No. That's you deserved that. You needed that. I feel like
I needed a win.
You had a couple rough guesses. I did you dirty on the past few episodes. You needed this. This is the slacking EX in question. For those wondering, I knew I saw this before. That clip, I'm like, no, I can get this. I did not have it instantly like you did, though. That was nuts.
Yeah, try to make it something where you could get it, but you wouldn't get it instantly, and here we are.
Yeah, no, definitely shout out to Avery for guessing it instantly. A rough way for this video to end for Josh. For Avery, well, I guess for Josh and me, I didn't win, and Josh most definitely did not win this episode of Who's That Pokemon? But Avery will take the crown for the first Prismatic Evolutions podcast episode. And before we close out, thank you for clapping. Before we close out for the episode, just one last small plug. Rogue Regionals, February 8th. Tune into the stream. We got some insane decks playing it, and we are coming down on 3 weeks, I believe, until the tournament. So I think next week I'm going to post a list of all the decks, not the deck list, just the overall deck archetype of what will be in the tournament for everyone to pick their favorite players, pick their favorite decks and their favorite Pokemon, and watch a stream. I mean, support the stream. Take a guess on who wins, because I've got a bunch of codes to do some small giveaways with, and I'm thinking about doing some bigger giveaways with stuff I'm still trying to work out the kinks with. But if you guess the right matchup, the right winner for each matchup, as well as the right overall champion, I've got some giveaways planned. So definitely stay tuned for that on February 8th. With that being said, anything you guys want to say before we close out?
I'm all good.
Word, Avery?
Everyone be safe out there. If you're competing in the regionals this weekend, I better shout out the pod when you get that winner's interview. Shout out the pod, shout out the channel.
True. So yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate all y'all for all the continuous support. For real, this community has been one of the best things to ever happen to me. So thank you guys so much for just being a part of it. And thank you guys for just chilling on this episode with me and sharing this space. It was a great time talking with everyone. With that being said, stay epic. Peace.